I think I'm falling in love. I think I'm falling in love.
What's up guys, welcome to today's video. I'm so excited to be filming this. I've been thinking a lot about this video and a lot of the common fitness myths that we often hear, especially in the diet industry. There's so many scare tactics out there, and unfortunately it's a really common way that companies, people, businesses use to promote their products or promote their meal plans or diet things or what have you. And it sucks because fear is a really good marketing tool. And so today's video is going to be the top 5 nutrition myths that I hear all the time and how they are not true. And maybe some of these things will make you feel a little bit better about your journey, or if you have perhaps believed one of these things before, it will change your mind and you might think another way. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. So the first myth that I hear all the time, especially when I post my nighttime oatmeal, is I cannot eat carbs after dark, or you can't eat carbs after 7 p.m. And this is such a silly fitness myth. I don't even know where this came from, but basically there are businesses, things, meal plans, people out there that tell their clients that they can't eat carbs after a specific time at night because if they do, it will make them gain weight. Now, this is completely false. At the end of the day, I know you guys have heard me say this time and time again, but it does come down to your caloric expenditure. So whether or not you're eating, 3 large meals a day or 5 smaller meals a day, whatever works for your schedule and your personal preference, if you are in a caloric deficit, meaning that you're eating less calories than you're burning, you will be supporting fat loss. And if you're eating in a surplus, eating more calories than you're burning, you will be supporting mass and muscle gain. So the only thing that I think sometimes trips people up with the nighttime eating, and this is true, if you are usually, let's say you eat your last meal at like 6 o'clock, and for whatever reason you have a really late night, you decide to eat dinner at 8 o'clock and then you have your snack at 9 and you wake up at 4 a.m. Just throwing that out there. Your weigh-in that morning may be higher than normal, and this is totally fine. This is just because you're eating later at night than you're used to. It takes your body longer to digest, and you're physically carrying more food in your body than you're used to if you always wake up at 4, but typically you eat at like 5 or 6. Completely normal, don't stress about it, but that can sometimes be what trips people up when they do their check-in and they're like, oh my God, I ate carbs after 7 p.m. and then my weigh-in was heavier in the morning. Yes, because you have more food overall in your body, and carbohydrates binds to water more than fat and protein does. Number 2 fitness myth, and this is probably one of my favorites, is that people think that certain foods are good for fat loss and certain foods are bad for fat loss, or that certain foods directly cause fat gain or weight gain. There are no certain foods that make somebody gain weight. And I think a lot of times this comes down to, like, for example, somebody will say, oh, I cut out bread out of my diet and I lost 5 pounds. Well, it wasn't necessarily the bread itself that caused you to lose the 5 pounds. It was because bread is a calorically dense food. You can have 2 slices of bread for sometimes 300-400 calories. And if you take out 300 or 400 calories and that puts you in a caloric deficit, you're gonna lose weight. So that bread could have been peanut butter, it could have been avocado, it could have been yogurt, whatever the case may be. But if you take it out and it contributes to a caloric deficit, then you're gonna lose weight, So it's not necessarily that bread is bad. I think it's a term that people use because they feel like once they took it out, they lost weight. And so therefore they correlate the bread with being bad, or so-and-so with being bad. Number 3 nutrition myth is that if you copy somebody else's meal plan or macro split, that you are going to have the same results as them. And this could not be farther from the truth. A lot of times people ask me like, oh, what's your macro split, or what are your numbers? And I hate telling people sometimes, because some of those people are asking because they want to copy exactly what I'm doing, and they think that it's gonna give them the same results. If your body structure and your cells, your bones, everything is so different from somebody else's, and like really different, you're never gonna look exactly like that person. No matter if you copy their foods, their macros, their whatever recipes, it doesn't matter. You have your own cells, you have your own environmental stressors, you have your own pre-dieting things that happen. Another thing too to consider is like how your upbringing was, not necessarily in terms of food, although that does kind of play a little bit of a factor with that. Like children who were gymnasts and grew up doing like super high intense sports, they really do have a different body structure than somebody who never played sports, and that's just how it is. You can't go back in time and change that. So that's another factor that people fail to consider, I think, and it also plays a little bit of a role in the way that their body looks like structurally, you know, and that's typically because gymnasts who are short, smaller in stature, they tend to do better in that sport, just like with basketball players, how they're usually really tall. And so then, you know, back when you're a kid, your parents like put you in basketball if you were really tall. It's just kind of like that thing, but it does really make a difference. If you've never done sports and you were never athletic in your life, you're not gonna like naturally carry more muscle mass, where somebody who's been playing sports their whole life or who has been really athletic going to probably have a little bit more muscle mass than somebody who's never played a sport in their life. So just something to keep in mind, because everybody is so different. And just because something works for one person does not mean that it's gonna work for another person. And I think this is really important to remember, especially when you're starting out, because you kind of have to figure out what works for you. You can't just go off of somebody else's macros and think that their macros are gonna be perfect for you, because chances are they're not. Number 4 is that there is a specific diet that works better for your goals. Fat loss, muscle gain, whatever it is. A lot of times people like to say that this is the best diet or this is the best diet. And I think that that's really, really individual. I hate when people say like, oh, RP strength is the best for losing weight, or tracking macros is the best for gaining muscle. In all reality, there's not one diet that is inherently better than another for fat loss or muscle gain. The best diet for you is whatever you can stick to that's realistic, sustainable, something you can maintain long term, and that's not gonna make your life miserable, be very difficult for you, and that looks different for a wide variety of people, right? For example, an ICU nurse who works 12 hours overnight shift. That is a really high stress, intense, unpredictable job. It's not realistic, in my opinion, to think that every 90 minutes or every 2 hours, whenever her block of eating is, that she's gonna just be able to whip out a nice meal and have her serving of greens, her serving of whatever, and be very structured in the sense that RP is, right? And that might work for a stay-at-home mom or somebody that doesn't have a high-stress job, and that's great. Whatever works for them. But don't fall victim into believing that a certain diet is the best for losing fat or gaining muscle, maintaining whatever it is, because that looks different for everybody. Some people absolutely love keto and it's worked really well for them. It's helped them a lot with autoimmune diseases, and that's fantastic. But just because that person lost 20 pounds on keto doesn't mean that you will enjoy keto. You might lose 20 pounds, but it might not be the right process for you, you know? So just keep that in mind, because again, it's like with the individualized macros or the individualized meal plans, they need to be made for you, and they shouldn't be something that you just copy off of somebody else. Last but not least, this is kind of just a funny one that's been floating around and people have been asking about this all the time, what my thoughts on celery juice are. And I think that this is the biggest myth right now currently in the fitness industry or the nutrition, you know, diet culture, what have you. The number 5 myth that I chose is that celery juice will solve all your problems. And while I think celery juice is great and there's tons of benefits to it, celery juice is not the end all be all to fat loss, as it for some reason has been portrayed lately. Dr. Lane Norton did an awesome video on this, which I really enjoy. It's a bit harsh if you don't know him. That's just his personality, but it is a really good video, and it explains why people think celery juice is like the godsend for dieting. I don't know, but it's not. And like I said at the beginning of this video, the base of it, and again, this is kind of like, I have to add a little disclaimer, because people with autoimmune diseases or health concerns or, you know, things that are going to be on the outlier section, they are not included in this. But for the majority of us, at the base of your pyramid is going to be caloric expenditure. So whether or not you want to drink celery juice, beet juice, I don't even know what, gold turmeric juice, whatever it is that you want to do, if you're not in a caloric deficit, if your recovery is not on point, if you're not eating whole nutrient dense foods, if you're not drinking enough water, if you're not sleeping enough, all these things have to be lined up in order for you to really have the most optimal results when it comes to fat loss. It's not just something where like you're gonna wake up and be like, oh, I'm gonna drink celery juice and lose 5 pounds. It's just not realistic, and that's just not true. So if you're looking for celery juice to solve all your problems, it's not gonna be the best problem solver for you, but If you want to add like some extra micronutrients and like maybe curb your hunger, sure, go for it and drink your celery juice. So that is my top 5 nutrition myths. I hope you guys enjoy and do not fall into these traps of believing these silly nutrition myths that have been floating around the industry for quite some time. I would love to put a stop to them. So give this video a thumbs up, share it, leave your comments below, let me know what you think, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you so much for watching.